The problem is I've seen people lately say that this Arsenal process is over and the project is completely over. We've seen that from the guys at DR Sports yesterday. They're like, I am not sure if people actually mean this or it's just banter. Like, if you look at how Arsenal are moving in the market,
it has to be banter.
The problem is they believe it. They believe that the process and the project is done. If Arsenal want to continue in this project and they get a new sporting director, you can genuinely think that Arsenal are moving into a different direction, but it's the same manager, same core of players, the Declan Rices, the Odegaards, the Sakas, the Saliba. The project is not done. Not because if they win next year, anything, right? Are you going to say that the process has failed last year? No, the process continues. The process will stop.
Just quickly, Mo, because I think we're misunderstanding what they mean, or they don't get what they're saying. One of those two things. I think when they say the process is done, it's finished, I think they mean it's time to deliver now. No more patience, no more waiting, no more spending money, no more giving more time, no more that. I think that's what they mean by the process is done. Because there's a lot of Arsenal fans that are still using this. Yeah, but we're in a process. Give us more time. No. Win now. There's no more deliver, no more process. I think that's what they mean when they say process is done. If they believe process is over, Arsenal failed, that's it, we fold the club, then they're talking rubbish. But if they do believe that there's no more time, I kind of agree with them.
Can I stop you? Hold on, Terrace. Just give me a second. So let me ask you something then. If he brings in Eucharist and Berta brings him a left winger and he has injuries and City go on and get like 90 plus points, does that mean, okay, so it's the same situation as this year? Will we have the same conversation again? And say that
we should, because if we're going through a stage where we're blaming injuries again, we haven't done enough in the summer. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Do you know, look, the process conversation is interesting. It also reminds me a little bit of what you said at the top of this segment about the language that David Ornstein uses. On David Ornstein, listen, of course he's got stuff wrong. All journalists do, but that isn't because I will defend journalists to a certain degree on transfers because we as fans have created this monster. We demand not even weekly updates. We demand day by day, step by step updates. And Ornstein can speak to Arteta directly today, who says, "Yeah, look, we are seconds away from landing Zubimendi." Ornstein goes, "Great, I'm going to publish that." Later that night in bed, Arteta gets a fucking text from another player that he thinks better than Zubi that says, "I'm coming. I'm going to come now instead." So Arsenal changed direction. Zubimendi gets called off. Ornstein's a fraud. Well, he's not. I'll give you an example. Well, Ornstein's not a fraud. Someone at the club changed their mind. So therefore, the club goes in a different direction. But we have created the language they use. They use very open-ended, buzzwordy language so that they can't be called out and abused online when football clubs don't deliver something or football clubs change their minds. Chelsea did this to a lot of their own journalists in the early stages of Clearlake. They briefed on Jules Koundé that it was done. And essentially when clubs agree a deal for a player, they start this kind of like transfer process of different things that have to happen. And they told the journalists in the hotel lobby on their pre-season, "We've got the deal done. We're starting the onboarding process of the player." So the journalists run with the story. And then Jules Koundé hadn't fully agreed and changed his mind. That wasn't the journalist's fault. And I just feel like over the years, I feel like we've created a bit of that monster. So I do get why the language is frustrating. But that's also now moved itself into the way Premier League clubs talk. Because the idea the process is over, well, the process and the project's never over. Because whether you won the league 2 years ago or not, you would still need new players now. So the idea of signing new players and improving your squad never ends. The element that I do agree with, though, is that the process can continue. It doesn't necessarily need Arteta, per se. The idea is this. I keep seeing the whole, what phase is slotting? Well, okay, probably about phase 15. Because FSG started this project in like 2010. When Arteta leaves, a new manager comes in, what I would reject is any Arsenal fan going, phase 1, we start again. No, he's taking over. You're in phase 4 of the way you guys structure it. So the new manager would have a higher expectation on day 1 than Arteta had on day 1 because the circumstance they're inheriting is different. That's my problem with these conversations. And I know it's going to offend people when I say this, but it's just so basic. It's just so annoying. It's just so like elementary on these subject matters. Taking over from Pep at City is not the same as Amorim taking over at Manchester United. The scenarios at the club the structures, the cultural approach, even the focus on winning versus commerciality as an example. We can't say that when Pep leaves, City will be in the position, unless they're relegated and stripped and financially fucked, right? But you can't say that's the same as when Amorim came in. So the expectations on Amorim day one versus Pep's replacement, I just cannot believe can be the same thing. The same as the person that takes over as the next Luton manager can't have the same expectations on him as Arteta's replacement. The clubs are in different situations, different phases of their cycle, and I do think there's a place for that. The problem is the words annoy people, but I don't know what.
That is what it is.
But this is my question. So everyone is annoyed by the word process. What word would you rather the club use? Because again, we all demand updates from our club. We want to know what's going on. What language do you want them to use about what they're trying to build? Like genuinely, anyone who moans about the language, what words do you want them to use? And please don't come back with, I just want to hear them say we're going to win. Because they're never going to say it like that. They're never going to articulate it back to you in those terms. So how do you want clubs to speak about what they're trying to build? And when they've made mistakes, how do you want them to address it? Like genuinely tell me. And if any of you think they're going to talk to you like a builder in a pub, you're idiots. These are, most of the time, these are highly educated individuals, right? Who speak the way they speak. They're not going to talk to you like a geezer down the pub. So that's the bit I get frustrated with. I agree that you can't keep kicking the can down the road with Arteta 100%. At the same time, I don't want to hear about still building this squad. Should have been done by now. But it's never going to be done forever. Even if you complete it, win 3 leagues on the bounce, there's going to come a point where the project and the process and the whatever you want to fucking call it needs a revamp. That's the bit that infuriates me, is we've become so focused on the language as opposed to what does your club actually need? Rightly or wrongly, what does it need? And I've seen a lot of gooners last night angry about this Gyökeres link. And honestly, boys, I'm reading their messages. Oh, but I have all those goals, like 16 of penalties. Why does that matter? It means he's a good penalty taker. Why would you be angry that you're signing an elite penalty taker? I honestly think that half these guys almost want you to foul so they can say they were right. Your fan base, for me, you've got like first.
I don't want to hear about it.
Moment. It's so strange to me. So strange.
I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it until I see him hold the shirt. We shouldn't be talking about it because he needs to hold the shirt first.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we shouldn't report about it. We shouldn't talk about it. All this link to all this, like, yeah, but we're not talking about. I don't think people understand how conversations work. Until this moment, like during the season, we didn't know that Liverpool would win the league. We didn't know that Arsenal would lose the league. We didn't know that Man City will be struggling for top 5. But there are conversations about them because there are possibilities.
Yeah.
And unless you are telling me that you believe that Gyökeres will not join Arsenal, we have to converse about it. We have to talk about it because the possibility.
And if we
Like,
look at
for example, I'm gonna call out some of the fans. Newcastle fans, for example, even though I like Newcastle, I'm happy for them. Every time I speak about Isak or Terry or even Dan or anyone, they tell us he's not moving. Don't talk about it. He's not moving. I get it. The board of Newcastle have said he's not moving, right? But at the moment, himself, Isak, said that he wants to play Champions League. And there is a possibility that Newcastle don't make Champions League. That means Isak might push for a move. So that means we have to talk about it. Which club is better for him? Is it Arsenal? Is he going to go to Barcelona?
Yeah. No,
it's the same for Gyökeres.
I totally agree. And look, this here from Jamie says, Terry, there has to be a deadline on a process. Again, that makes sense. What element of that process? So, for instance, and this is where I think a conversation has to be had as opposed to everybody trying to prove themselves right. Because I think there are elements of truth to this. There has to be a validity period on every manager, win, lose, or draw. Has to be. Equally, though, when it comes to your club, well, we should want the project, the process, let's just Google it for a second here. Because I don't trigger people. Other words for project. Let's just find a new word to use, boys. Let's just find a new word. Let's Google it. Let's find a good one. Predict, estimate, count. No, that's not really a good one. What can we have here? Job in hand. Yeah, that's a good one. Let's use job in hand. For your clubs, you want the job in hand to always be to make you the best football team possible in the world. Well, that will never end, will it? That should never end, because football can't work like that. Say Arsenal do build the best team in England. If you don't continue to evolve, and if you don't continue that project and always trying to be the best team, you will eventually go backwards. And in fact, Arsenal did that. You started going backwards in the mid-noughties when you stopped improving your team. So this is where I think a grown-up, educated conversation has to happen, challenge in every direction. I agree, Jamie, that a manager should not be given an infinite amount of time to become successful. I believe there should be a cut-off period. That cut-off period should be the club have found someone they believe to be truly better that can continue in that direction and get you over the line, make you more consistent. But your club should never stop in its process, its project, in its job in hand to try and make you the best team in the world.
That's why the whole wording was just pathetic at the start, in my opinion. That's why people were laughing at it. Because everybody goes through whatever you want to call it. You can call it a process, you can call it phases, you can call it what the hell you want, a project, a plan. Everyone's got one of those things. But when we see it with Arsenal, all of a sudden, it was every year. It was like, yeah, but it's only phase 2. It's who has all these phases? Like, no, this is where I'll push back a bit, because I
think everyone does, though. I think everyone does have those phases. But where I agree with you,
we haven't heard it before, though. Tell was my point.
But this is it. But this is where football fans need to. I mentioned it about the transfers. This is where football fans have to agree to what they do and they don't want. If you want to hear from football clubs around what you're trying to do, this is how you're going to be spoken to, because this is how business plans and plans are put into place. This is, you sit down with a really good PT and nutritionist, and they're going to teach you how to get into shape. They're going to talk to you about the different phases of the way you're going to train. The language they use will probably not be language you're used to, because it will be within their profession. And we all have this in our day jobs. All of us have a day job where we use certain acronyms or words or phrases that may not be used in a different sector. But what we're asking for as football fans is be more transparent. Tell us what's going on. So people start telling us, and we don't like it because we feel like it's always kicking the can down the road. Now, where I agree with you is there has to be an end goal for us, maybe a manager or a player, or he's had 3 seasons as a striker. He isn't scoring enough. I ain't trusting that element anymore. We need someone better. But at the same time, the phase thing or the process element, depending on where your club was when you started that, of course it's going to take time. I don't believe Arsenal could have gone from where you were in 2019 to where you are now, or where you were last season, in 1 or 2 transfer windows. I think it is something that took time to clear out the dead wood, clear out the toxicity, change the culture that you've already praised as an example, start building this squad up. I think those elements take years. What you always get is the examples of, well, Ajax dropped off for 1 year. Look, they're already back at the top. Well, that's because they didn't suffer nearly 20 years of malpractice. Oh, Madrid had 1 bad season. They went out, had a good summer. They're back to winning La Liga. Have they gone through what Man United have they had 12 years of what Man United have just been through? No, never in their modern day history. See, when you make these comparisons, I think we have to compare apples with apples and oranges with oranges. And I just think that where I agree with you, though, and I concur, is you can't just keep kicking that can down the road forever for a manager and or players. But even for the club. Say you get to a point where you say, I don't think this project is working. It isn't ever going to make us champions. It isn't ever going to make us get back into the Champions League. We're never going to win the UCL. If you believe that, then you can also kick back against it as well. So I'm not saying you shouldn't challenge these things. I just don't think the language is the issue. It's whether or not you believe in what they're trying to build. Does that make sense? I can look past the language because it's corporate talk from corporate people. The same as when a journalist says personal terms will be no problem. That's just their way of protecting themselves. Like, I know what that means. It means an agent has told a club he's happy with what you'd pay him in salary. Like in reality, does that make sense? And I don't know. I just feel that the process stuff's just not that important. The language of it is, I think it muddies the waters. I do agree. But sorry, back to you, Potsy.
Some people do get confused by it, though, by saying, oh, well, it's a process. It's a process. Oh, so what happens if Arteta then goes? Oh, well, no, it's awful if he goes. Well, it might not be, because you've just said the process continues. So you then go and find the next manager who then continues it on. And I've always said that. You know, me and Yardman were talking about this, and Yardman said the other day, you know, if Arteta goes, do we just kick the Emirates down, make it into flats, and then that's it? The club's done. Like, I don't get this. You know, like, real talk.
That's the other side of it, though. I don't think your process ends with Arteta. I think it can go beyond him, and that's how modern day clubs are run. You should not be building the club solely in the image of a manager, that when they leave, it all falls down. I mean, we all saw that the problems that Fergie and Wenger have leaving have created. Now, if every club was built like that, it wouldn't be a problem, because every club would theoretically have a down period after a manager of 5, 10, however many years leaves. But most clubs are now structured, especially in Europe, they're structured so differently. And there's a reason why the Real Madrids and the like have, I'll have to go back and do more research, but especially in my lifetime, it's why I've never had periods like Liverpool and Man United are currently in, and Arsenal went through. They never had that. One, they have a financial monopoly that helps, but it's because the head coach is the head coach, and the president, people run the football club, and the head coach coaches the team that the club builds. That's why those clubs maintain a level of consistency for so long. And that's what I just think football fans have got to get there. But the problem we have as English fans, I think, Potsy, is that we all brought up in a culture of the manager is the figurehead of the club. So you fall in love with the manager because they're the figurehead of your club. You don't, and that's where the one element I used to really, I didn't agree with the wording with Lee Gunner, but I got where he was coming from. The manager is just a paid employee. There has to be an element of that train of thought as well, because you don't have another Wenger in Arteta. Man United don't have a new Fergie in Amorim. I think the clubs are really
support
clear.
the club, not the manager. Basically,
I agree, and the structure has to be more important. The process, I know people hate the words, but I don't know what other words to use. I like those words; they make sense. The club's plan of where they want to be can't live or die on the head coach or manager. It has to supersede them. It has to be better, and it has to be more important than that individual, I think, in the modern day game, if I want to try and get the language right.